transport and infrastructure. At the inauguration this morning that transport and infrastructure will continue to increase around the globe. It needs to be considerably more sustainable. And in order to reach that, we need to create new platform for this innovation. Is to think about, can we have the digital landscape as we know it today if we didn't have 4G and now moving into 5G, right? And that's the reason why we need also in these type of sectors need to provide these type of new platforms. And what we have done that together, I mean, we can come back to two very interesting partnerships here that we are working with Ovako and SSAB, but also over the last 12 to 18 months actually done a number of horizontal partnerships in order to create this and then create a platform where we can continue to compete as peers. For example, the Pan-European charging infrastructure partnership and joint venture together with Daimler and Traton, two of the other bigger players, one example of that. Because if that is not happening, we will continue to have the chicken and egg situation. Then we can be very concrete in also talking to other stakeholders into this. Of course, the utility and energy companies, great companies like ABB providing charging infrastructure, etc. But also to governments and institutions about what will that take then in order to get the job done on the ground when it comes to permits, grid capacity, green generation of energy, etc. So these type of partnership and coalitions is a way to really make the needle moving. And another example of that is the joint venture we have created with Daimler also on the fuel cell development and production, because otherwise that will take too long time to get up to speed when it comes to volumes and scale. And then of course these very concrete examples also about the input material, fossil-free steel, and also how we utilize the fact that the steel industry is transforming now with their type of input material, oxygen and hydrogen, and how can that full ecosystem work. So yeah, the time is over when you can develop something 4 or 5 years in your own R&D process and then go out to the market. This is a constant interaction between different parties, right?
Thank you very much, Martin. Martin Pei and Göran, would you like to share from your perspective the needs of system integration and partnerships? Would you like to start, Martin?
Yes, thank you. We have been working for a very, very long time to improve our production processes. We worked back in 40 years ago. SSAB, LKAB took a significant step where we take the blast furnace-based technology to a point where there is not very much room to further improve. 5 years back, we realized that we need to take another step. And to do that, we need to get support from the energy company. So we engaged Vattenfall. We created a hybrid initiative. We worked systematically, involved all possible research groups in the society, universities and research institutes. And we did a lot of focused efforts, and we managed to show that using hydrogen to reduce iron ore, make steel, we actually managed to make steel in this way. And this is a significant step, but we can't stop here. We can make this steel thinner, thicker, stronger, or lighter.
I mean, more. We need much more,
yes,
of course.
But we need to take a next step. Then we started the discussion with Volvo. We made this mining truck, which Martin launched just a little more than 2 weeks ago. This becomes really the significant step that steel in this way produced can make the true contribution to the society. So collaboration along the value chain, that's the most important success factor in this case.
Thank you very much, Martin Pei. And how about Göran Nyström, from your perspective on partnerships?
Yeah, we have come to the conclusion that cross-company collaboration is crucial to achieve fast and large climate effects. So I think it's a living example of what we're doing with Volvo now, not just Volvo, but other companies too. Ovako is a steel peer of SSAB, and we are not competing, so with different types of products. We are also scrap-based, 97% scrap-based. And our operations will be 100% carbon neutral from 1st of January. So we have reached a long way. But what we're going to do now is to implement the hydrogen concept for heating of steel. that actually serves multiple purposes. We can use residual heat for communities. We can balance the electricity grid and thereby open the door to put more wind and solar on the grid. And as Martin mentioned, what we can do is actually to scale this up quite easily so that we can provide hydrogen for third parties. And in addition, of course, we want to share this with our steel peers. The world potential is more than 300 million tons of carbon dioxide that we can save. And that's what we're pioneering.
Well, thank you all three of you for excellent examples of collaboration. I'm turning now to Ian Clough from DHL. The logistics sector is, of course, critical for this transformation. And DHL has been testing a 60-ton electric truck in the regular line haul. So Ian, would you like to tell us a little bit about your perspective here? Do you see need for partnerships from your side?
Absolutely. It's really critical that we don't just work with the vehicle manufacturers, but also work really closely with our customers, because we have all parties need to have those very aggressive targets for CO2 reduction and the science-based targets, and not just our vehicle suppliers, but also our customer base. So a couple of examples we have working with Volvo in Sweden, where we're running a 60-ton vehicle between Jönköping and Gothenburg on a daily basis, and we're learning a lot from that partnership. And I think two major companies like ourselves at DHL and Volvo have the capability to take that first step, because we can't afford to wait. We have to move forward, and somebody's got to take those first steps. So we're very proud to be part of that partnership. And then also we have almost a three-way partnership in an operation that we work in London with a smaller all-electric 16-ton vehicle that's doing deliveries every single day into central London. Partnerships with Volvo for the vehicle, ourselves doing the delivery, and then also it's delivering part of the climate change targets for Hermes, the luxury handbag manufacturer. So bringing those three constituents together, it gives something very powerful, and I think it's about moving forward quickly, not waiting, and doing that through partnership is definitely an accelerator for DHL.
Thank you very much, Ian Clough. I'd like to ask all of you, and just a sentence or two to address the need to get more green electricity in this system in order to make it possible for you to move on further. Would you like to start, Göran?
Well, I think it's a well-known situation that we need that to happen, but I don't think it's holding back anything on the demand side. I think we should build the demand side and put pressure on the supply side, and I think there are other obstacles that we also need to address, and rest assured that the world will move to much more fossil-free energy. We do need it.
Martin Pay, please.
Yes, I agree. I think we should think in this situation that what we actually want to do is we want to stop using coal and fossil fuel. Instead, use fossil-free electricity instead. So this actually creates a market for investment in producing fossil-free electricity, and that we can do locally. So this demand, in this case, I should say this is very positive.
You're driving the change.
Exactly, and create a lot of opportunities too.
Thank you. Martin Lundstedt, please.
No, first and foremost, I agree with what both Göran and Martin have said, but I think it's also interesting to understand that, when it comes now to, ETS has been very powerful for us to transforming actually the energy sector, right? Now when all other sectors gradually will move into the full electrification, first and foremost, continue to have a good development on price on carbon, both when it comes to public pricing, but also for corporates. And then to understand that, electricity is produced when it's consumed. So we really need to work with the storage capacity, where hydrogen is very important for us. And that's the reason why, battery electric or fuel cell electric vehicles is just two sides of the same coin, right? Because for different applications, different geographies, etc., renewables will play a super important role, but we need a part then from the hydropower to find the right type of storage solutions. We will do it when we drive this type of development together. Hydrogen will be crucial, hydrogen will be crucial also for the fact that to get the right type of efficiency up to it, together with a pure battery electric vehicle.
Martin and Göran, would you like to add something on partnerships and making this happen in this additional green energy and more electricity? What other partnerships do we need?
So our investment, we will build now what will be Sweden's largest, in fact Europe's largest electrolyzer for fossil-free hydrogen. That will be up and running next year. It was a very unorthodox process when we raised the money. And Volvo, thank you, were part of it. Hitachi was part of it, Nel Hydrogen, and of course H2 Green Steel as well, and the Swedish Energy Agency. This was a kind of a very special thing because everybody saw that this is the right thing to do. But those partnerships are interesting because they cut across typical, different types of industries. And so we have to think a little bit outside the box, really. And we've taken it even one step further. So from 1st of January, we will actually implement a climate surcharge with our invoices. And that is helping us to build the next and the next and the next electrolyzer. That's what we're doing. So what we're doing is actually asking our customers to be part of this journey. So it's actually collaboration with our customers as well. So I think all of us now need to find shortcuts to financing because we have the technology. And we are, by the way, we don't have any IP, it's open invention. So we need to spread the knowledge.
It's wonderful that we see this so much these days, the open IP, because we really need to move along and we can't hold back. And Martin Pei, would you like to add?
Oh yes, I want to come back to this hydrogen storage. As we are speaking now, we are currently constructing the pilot plant of this line rock cavern pilot plant in Luleå. And from next year in Q2, we will start to make the first trial with that technology. So if it works, we can store hydrogen at around 250 bars. We can build hydrogen storage that corresponds from the energy content perspective. One single storage corresponding to 1 million Tesla cars capacity. That you can imagine, this can really help the future electricity grid and also for wind power investment companies to get better paid for their investments. And for us as user of hydrogen, we can lower our cost. So this way of working, we believe, will create the most significant support for this transformation.
Thank you very much. Martin, about the Volvo business arena, business arena Volvo Energy, how can this enable and what are the key factors in this setup that will push this further?
But first and foremost, we created a new business area, Volvo Energy, in the beginning of this year. And the reason that we did see a rather fragmented type of development in our other business areas in order to support them when it comes to really building out infrastructure, permission process, grid capacity, second life of batteries, because a battery in a heavy vehicle, when we take that out after X years depending on applications, still contains 70 to 75% of energy that can be utilized for static, so to speak, energy storage, right? But what I think is important, that is to continue to facilitate all the opportunities that we have around this type of infrastructure and energy content on board, also for the fuel cells and hydrogen. But if you hear Ian, Martin, Göran, myself, and specifically around the science-based target, what used to be that we didn't talk about in that shape and form before, my scope 3 downstream is someone else's scope 2 upstream or scope 1 and scope 2. So it's a very powerful way of actually starting to connect each other in a much more positive way, if I should say so. Because when we look at each other's abatement curves, then we really, get this type of innovation dialogue going. And Volvo Energy was an opportunity to close the gap that existed when we looked at this value chain actually, and a good business opportunity and an accelerator also. Thank you.
Let's dig a little bit deeper into the different types of partnerships needed and in order to make this transformation happen. We have private-public partnerships, we have regional national partnerships, we have differences between policy and frameworks, etc. Where would you see, I'm going to turn to Ian now, what type of these partnerships, which partnerships are the most important to drive this push this change further ahead quickly?
So I think in the short term, getting the real genuine partnership between the manufacturer, the customer, and the logistics company on a common set of goals, that's the most important thing for us as we speak today. But I think there are lots of other opportunities as we continue to develop. DHL has literally thousands of facilities across the whole of Europe, and one of the opportunities that presents is we've got to get the power to a delivery place that can be facilitated for the trucks and the vehicles. And as we invest in new facilities, as we invest in transport operations, ensuring that they are future-proof to be able to deliver that electric power to those electric vehicles when they come on stream, that's a great opportunity, not just for DHL to power our own fleet, but also to be part of the overall power solution for the industry as a whole. So I think there are different opportunities in there. The other area where we really need support in the very short term is that sort of public and commercial partnership. So government or local industry support, particularly in the areas of facilitating expansion of the grid, because we have facilities where we have literally hundreds and hundreds of vehicles operating out of an individual facility, and the expansion of that grid and that power delivery is critical, and we can't do those things on our own.
Thank you very much. I'd like to turn now to Martin, and Martin, to give your reflections on this perspective. Which partnerships are more crucial than others?
For us, when we develop this technology, the partnership we have created is essential because really we complement each other. The next step is our customers, because without that, what we do does not give result. So from this perspective, for us, cooperation on the value chain, that's really what made this a big difference.
Thank you very much, Martin. Göran, your perspective on this, please.
Yeah, I think it's the scope 3 is an interesting one. We talk upstream and we talk downstream, and I think we need to make sure that people vote with their wallets, right? There are options out there that are better or worse, and I think we need to make that transparent and clear. So that's the most essential partnership of all. The other thing I would say is that financing, I showed you one model, but I think today the cost of electrolyzers is too high. It's a market failure. It will go down, but we can't afford that people wait for the price to go down. I think there must be some kind of method whereby we facilitate earlier investments in technology that is known and ready.
And then we're looking maybe at policies and strategies?
Correct.
From a regulatory perspective?
Correct. So that's where we need the support. We've gotten the good support for the first one, but this needs to be followed from other sources for other projects.
Thank you. Martin, your perspective, please.
First and foremost, I think what has been so great to see over the last 2 or 3 years is how industries actually are coming together to really make the change happening from a, so to speak, pilot phase into a more scale-up phase. And that can only be done thanks to cooperations across the value chain. At the same note, I also see now, take Fit for 55 as an example, that there are a number of regulatory, so you could say, frameworks and policies and principles that are important for the long-term level play field, for the long-term type of capital allocation, so we know that we are going in the right direction. And for example, I mean, price on carbon, that we have a constant, consistent way of looking at that with a level play field, because emitting should be paid for. And you need to do this type of tax change, etc. So I think it's difficult to grade. I think we need this type of very tangible type of partnerships in different shapes and forms. And I mean, with academia and institutions, it's the same to get things started, to be, so to speak, the accelerator, etc. So I think the organizations that have the mindset you cannot do it on your own, being open for innovation and open IP, whatever, will win, because they will create speed and drive.
How can we? What are the risks for failure here, and what obstacles? I mean, where are the big risks in terms of failing this, Göran?
So I see there's a lot of great things happening. My only concern is speed. That we're maybe dragged down in the speed that we could have had. And I do think that we need to put really a premium on precious constraints. Carbon dioxide tonnage removed by calendar time, by money, monetary unit, or by kilowatt hours. And we really need to have those KPIs up on the table and promote the right things and do it now. Carbon neutral now. That's the pledge we have, and I do think it applies to everybody.
Thank you. I'm turning to Ian. What are the biggest risks of failing?
I would share the same, very similar view. I think the biggest risk is that we wait for somebody else to do it for us, or we wait for the price to come down, or et cetera, et cetera. I think we've got to be driving the change. So that's what I would say.
And Martin?
Yes, I agree. We need to understand that change needs to happen now. We can't wait. Climate can't wait. And we really need to be bold enough, take decisions, and we will develop the technology that's needed. We have shown that it's possible, and we should do it.
Thank you for your strong statements here. And Martin?
No, I could just reiterate what everyone has said here, and also that we are open to iterate much quicker together, because that is also part of the speed, and then you will dare to try together, open books, less transactional. I think the world has been far too much transactional. That is just creating incremental type of gains, sitting there and playing cards for 1-2% on the cost. It's not giving any, real effect on this. So less transactional, more true partnerships, open books, create true value, and then you can divide that value, between the planet and the companies and society, right?
And of course, there is so much value on different sides here. It's immense, especially for the future generations, right? So I'd like also to ask you, what are your hopes for this event that we're at now? From your horizon, I'd like to start with Martin. The negotiations and what they might entail for your company.
For us, it is important that we get a price on emission, and we create a level playing field, so that we drive this transformation quicker, and nobody need to wait. That is the most important signal we need as an industry.
And do you think this will be the case?
I personally really hope this will be the decisive meeting that we get there.
Thank you. And Göran?
I think I've mentioned it, but I do think it's important that industry now steps up to the plate properly, and B2B consumers also. And I can see it's happening, so I'm quite encouraged. I think there has been a lot of talk earlier about regulatory aspects and that playbook, but I think the playbook is between commercial partners like Volvo and ourselves, and we're making it happen, aren't we?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Martin?
No, I fully agree. I think political leadership, of course, this is a political arena from the origin, right? And if you remember COP26 and the immense impact that had when it came to showing the direction and all the consequences out from COP26 when it comes to delivering what we talk about, that the 1.5 degrees, delivering on a lot of the different directions that we talk about today has been developed out from that, with the science-based targets and the green finance framework, etc. So continue to show that political leadership and also the big direction in that, price on emissions, inclusive type of transformation between different type of continents and regions, etc. The political leadership in this directional transition, I think, is very important.
And Martin, if there will not be decisions strong enough, how will this affect? Would you continue to push on? This is actually a question to all of you. You're really reading in many ways here. So well, you lose some traction, of course,
no,
but
yeah, you can lose traction, as we said. We should have the mechanism in place that will drive the transformation. But our road and journey, that is already set. The road to fossil free, the road to net zero, the road to 100% safe solution in many, because that is another very important area. That is set. Then it's a matter of speed for coming generations and for the planet, right? And there we hope that we can get this extra push, but the direction is clear.
Thank you. And over to Ian, DHL.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I agree. I think the partnership element of this, whether it be public-private partnership or with commercial organizations, I think that's really where I see the big value creation and the ability to really accelerate change. And I just hope, my hope for COP26 is that the political leadership just really drives that message forward, and we see that message of partnership so that we really accelerate the change.
And Ian, from your perspective, in more detail, what would be the most preferred or successful outcome from the negotiations?
I think keeping 1.5 alive is a real critical objective, and I'd really hope that as the outcome of the conference is that keeps it alive.
The 1.5 alive?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Of course.
Comments?
Of course.
So you will be participating in many panels here, and I recently spoke on a sustainability summit in Japan for Business Sweden as a keynote speaker, and we see huge interest, of course, for this type of leadership. And also, when you look at your roles globally, in terms of distinguishing between push and pull, where are you, Göran?
So I must mention that we belong to Nippon Steel Group. It's a very major steel player in the world, and they consider us their leading edge, and we're happy to take that role. So I'm not sure if we're pushing or pulling, but I think we are moving things by our actions. So I'm happy to take that role.
And also in terms of being an inspiration, a global company to be inspiring other smallers. When I was speaking in Tokyo online, there was such big admiration for the Swedish bigger players and international related to Sweden businesses of really driving the change. And how does that really, what does that mean for your work to understand that you have the eyes on you, Mattias?
Oh, yes, back 5 years ago when we started, there were a lot of hesitation. A lot of people were really not feeling this is going to be serious. But now we see complete change. Many companies have realized that what we have shown so far shows this is the way to move forward. So we are quite happy to be in that leading position. We will push forward to do this transformation. So we are going to do this as quickly as possible because we believe this is right.
Thank you. And I give the final words to you, Martin.
No, but I think first and foremost, great insights just to discuss with Ian and Göran and Martin, obviously, and give some rather concrete and pragmatic examples on how we're working. But then coming back to your question that I really like, pull or push. And I think, I'm a strong believer in want to instead of have to.
Want to instead of have to.
Yeah, and I think this pull, as you say, is really the want to. And you're creating another level of excitement among your colleagues, but also among your business partners and among also society at large if you have this want to. The combination of there is no flip side if you do it right. And that from an engineering standpoint, as I'm an engineer, it's lovely to have that type of discussion and unleash the creativity. So want to instead of have to. I think that from a group perspective, Volvo Group has been a big change over the last 3-4 years in this area, or maybe 2-3 years actually. And it's very inspiring.
Well, inspiring indeed to have this conversation with you and with Ian remotely. So thank you very much, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And we have a second panel lined up here for you. It's a very exciting panel we have with us, and I'd like to ask up in order. We just need to wipe up the microphones a bit here. And it's very hectic around us here at COP26. We're in the middle of the action here at the Swedish pavilion. And around us there are people walking around, for those of you following us online. And it's a special setup because the sound is transferred differently than a regular broadcast from us in the room. So I hope you can hear us loud and clear with this technique. So it's my pleasure to welcome up from the Volvo Group, Niklas Gustafsson, Vice President, Public and Environmental Affairs. Please take the floor here. And also have with us Theodor Svedjemark, Chief Communications and Sustainability Officer from ABB. Welcome to you, Theodor. And from Vinnova we have Darja Isaksson, Director General. A warm welcome. And from Ragn-Sells we have Per Lars Hans, who is Director of Sustainability and Public Affairs. All right. And it is a bit tricky with the microphones, so I'll have to ask you to move quite close to the table in order for the sound to be transmitted. Lovely to have all four of you here, and we're going to talk about green transition now. Action, not words. And of course, this is what we need, action, not words. Even if you're going to speak a lot here today, it's action that we're focusing on. So I'd like to start with a question to you, Niklas. Partnership for green transition, what does that mean for Volvo Group? Can you exemplify?
Yes, Katarina, thank you very much. I think very much of this was covered a bit in the earlier panel, but to be a little bit one step more concrete maybe.
Yes, please.
For us it's extremely important to look at innovation from all different angles. So of course innovation in our own technical transition from the diesel engine to battery electric and fuel cell electric vehicles. That's one part of the innovation. We do very much of that together with partners, not only with the big technology partners, but also with the innovation that we can find in small and medium enterprises. So this is also really important when it comes to partnership, that the big companies can actually find ways of teaming up also with the small and medium enterprises, because that's a lot of innovation skills in there from a pure technology perspective. And here the Swedish Innovation Agency is supporting us a lot on this. But then also the next step then, after the technology level, is actually the system solutions then, that we have been covering a lot of. And again, coming back to innovation, it's a lot of innovation to be found actually also in the horizontal way of teaming up together with partners, be it on hydrogen, for instance, with the steel industry, in the incoming fossil-free steel that we of course need for our products, but also in the transition as such within the steel industry, utilizing hydrogen then, green hydrogen, that we can actually use in the different sectors in society. And why don't we team up and try to be innovative, all of us, be it in the power industry, or be it in the transport industry, or be it in the district heating industry, what have you. And it's not like, let's just team up and join forces and go full steam ahead. Of course it's like that, but it's also a lot of things to learn on the way. So I think maybe the innovation part of partnerships is just as important. It's not like we have learned everything already from the green steel revolution. It's not like we have learned everything yet from building electrolyzers to actually support society with green hydrogen. And you know, so it's a lot of innovation in there, and that is key for Volvo to find the right partnerships, be it in the smaller parts or be it in the real big horizontal parts actually.
Thank you very much, Niklas. We have with us also ABB Theodor here. What you do in ABB of course affects basically all sectors of society, many different parts of society that you're in and impacting. So why is it important for you to be here at the COP? What are your sort of key reasons to be here and push?
At first, thank you so much, Katarina, for inviting me to be here on the panel. And of course, it's great to be here with so many people also in person. We should all recognize the last couple of years have maybe not allowed this to happen again. And I think it goes to the core of your question. I mean, COP is about bringing parties together. And this is also, I would say, one of the core reasons that we are here. I think to solve the complex challenges that we have ahead of us, we all need to get together, we need to collaborate. We sincerely believe the biggest part of the answer lies in technology. Niklas, you mentioned innovation many times. I just want to say that we are here to talk about technology, and we're also here to showcase and talk about certain technologies which are already available today, which is a great news, because it means that especially on the route to the 2030 of halving emissions, at least we see that many of the technologies, and we heard a lot of different discussions in the previous panel earlier today, are already available today to drive that. But of course also to engage with all the public stakeholders and talk about certain policies and other topics. So that's why we are here and what we want to achieve.
Thank you. I'd like to stay a bit with you. Could you give some examples of the cutting edge technologies that you are already impacting the climate change, well, climate action from ABB?
Of course, I'll start with one angle which we like to talk a lot about at ABB, and also in for example, the IEA keeps stressing the importance of the topic of energy efficiency. We are a global leader in producing electric motors and variable speed drives. Imagine a box that makes a drive or electric motor intelligent, or it's like a dimmer, you can turn it on and off. And today there are about 300-400 million electric motor systems installed around the world. They consume about 45% of the electricity of the planet. If you would upgrade these, which today most of them are pretty old standard and energy inefficient, you can cut electricity consumption by up to 25%. In the best of cases. It's not always the same case, it depends. This can have very big impact on emissions, because energy is generally produced in one way or another, as we all know, and not fully renewable yet. So this is one area. The other one is e-mobility, where we're also a global leader. We think the technology is available already today. I mentioned it earlier today. We recently launched the world's fastest EV car charger, which can add 100 kilometers in less than 3 minutes, so we think we have reached a tipping point to make having an electric car for a normal person as convenient as a normal internal combustion engine car. But there are also other very important areas, such as mining. I think mining today on a global basis stands for about 7% of total CO2 emissions. It's extremely important part of the value chain to achieve the transition, going to the discussion in and around fossil-free steel, etc. We are pushing the boundaries here. We have the technology today to electrify mines, to also reduce the emissions in this sector. And of course, last but not least, it was mentioned many times, the topic of hydrogen. We should forget that for hydrogen to be good, it needs to be green, and the technology to enable that is available already today.
Thank you for sharing such great examples. Diana Isaksson, Director General of Vinnova, the Swedish Innovation Agency. What is your major role in pushing for this broad transition that we're talking about here today?
Well, I mean, we've heard many examples here today that what drives this transition is innovation in meaning radically improved technology, new business models that even drive new value chains, but also innovations in the way we work together to be able to take the systems perspective, right? So as the Innovation Agency, our role is we have a mandate to help mobilize actors across borders around these really ambitious missions and agendas, and then lower the thresholds for innovation within these. For instance, by making it easier to co-create and experiment together, but also to get access to international collaborations, to get access to knowledge, to get access to the infrastructure for research and innovation. So those are a few examples.
So you mentioned some examples here, but what are the key actions from your perspective to make innovation happen?
Well, to make innovation happen, for that you need to do a number of things. But I think that from the leadership we hear today, dare to take risk together, dare to actively really push new ways of delivering this kind of value. And I think that we've seen fantastic leadership in that sense today. But I would say there's still more that we need to do. So the world is moving quite fast. So I think that we need to also strengthen our investments, both in money and people and resources, especially in strategic areas that really cut across industries. And we've heard many examples here today. It has to do with hydrogen, electrification, but also digitalization, automation, etc. So that's important. And then to get this kind of system approach, where when we have the innovations, we can shorten the time. You know, we need to shorten the time from new knowledge to be translated into innovations that can then impact society at scale. And for that, we need to take these strengths of collaboration one step further. So it's really, really essential also to get, for instance, the regulatory and the policy perspective in early, both to push the demand levers, but also to create policy and infrastructure framework conditions that can help this happen. So I think that we are moving in that direction, but it certainly requires still a lot of work.
And is Vinnova walking the talk fully?
Well, yes. I think that we've set a clear set of priorities for our portfolio. So we actually fund innovation that drives these types of challenges and the capabilities needed to support them. But we also challenge ourselves. So if we are going to take this type of systems approaches, we need new ways of working. So we are challenging ourselves in helping also the public sector and the regulatory bodies come into the innovation ecosystem, be in the room, take part in this innovation work. And that's one example. And we also develop new ways of doing this together, for instance, with policy labs and system demonstrators that we develop together with industry.
So when it comes to this, what's happening here from this facility here, from an innovation perspective, how much is innovation being addressed here at the COP, do you think, and what is the dream scenario for the outcome from an Director General of an innovation agency's perspective?
Well, I'm sure I speak for a lot of people here that what we see industry doing now is showing the leadership where investing into the innovations that really push boundaries and that even drive new value chains is seen not only as necessary, but the key to success. And I think that mind shift is essential. And I think we share that. I don't think we've been sharing it forever, but it's really exciting. So obviously what I hope for, and we've heard the requests, price on carbon that is good, will drive investments that we need. So there have been some really clear messages. So what I'm hoping is that this COP will be kind of that we really see the hockey stick now, that from now on, every cent, every bit, every creative strategic working hour is really directed towards ambitious push for driving this change.
Thank you very much, Gustafsson. And before I turn to Per Larsson's, would Niklas and Theodor like to reflect on the Vinnova perspective? How important is it that we have agencies like Vinnova to make this happen quicker? Niklas?
Of course, it's extremely important, and I think for a smaller country like Sweden, it's extremely. We need to be in the forefront in innovation, and what Darja and her team is doing is also on the international arena to actually start doing innovation projects together with other parts of the world. That's also key. So, for instance, with India, we are now teaming up with the help of Vinnova to make innovation there. So absolutely, without innovation, we will not get where we want to. Sure.
And Theodor?
Yeah, couldn't echo what Nicholas just said more. And of course, as for us as a global company, we are active all around the world, and we want to have strong partners like Vinnova to keep also challenging us and provide a platform for collaboration in and around areas. And I think Sweden is a great example of a country who is very far ahead in this respect when it comes to the technologies that we discussed already before, and focusing now at really pushing the boundaries also in the area of digital, developing digital technology. I think Sweden is very well placed, and that's where we see that it's a strong potential.
Thank you very much, Theodor. And Per Larsson, you have a strong track record in this field of sustainability, and I'd say most people might think of Ragn-Sells as a recycling company. And do you think recycling will be able to pull its part and save the planet, or what is your perspective on this?
We are still a recycling company, but to be honest, today we are dealing with waste. But does it really does it really exist in waste? We see that waste is, to be honest, just resources that has not been sorted yet. So the thing is, how can we create circular material flows? How can we enable the resources to be extracted in a good way? And we are developing solutions that has a global potential, that we'll be able to extract resources with a very low carbon emissions effect. One example is our new plant that we're building now in Stockholm, where we'll extract salt out of fly ashes. with extremely low carbon emission rate. We'll deep dive into that on Friday in a session that will explain the details. But the market says we would like to buy the salts because the carbon emissions from those salts are 90% lower than current linear production. So this is one example. Another example is of course, when it comes to circular material flows, is then I would like to address Professor Göran Rockström and Sir Richard Attenborough in their film Breaking Boundaries, The Science of Our Planet. They say that circular material flows will not only solve the problem with the carbon emissions, but all 9 planetary boundaries. So circular material flow will be a key component going forward. So I was very happy for 2 weeks ago when we in Japan, at the same session that you talked about, signed the contract with Hitachi Zosen Innova that will use our technique in 12 markets now primarily. Japan, China, Australia, that is on the opposite side of us. Also here in UK, they are very interested. So this is really happening now, and this is really new technique being brought to the market.
Thank you very much, Per Larssons. And I realize and I know that you have a very special thing going on in Estonia, where there is potential to take in lots and lots of carbon emissions. Could you please tell us more about this?
Well, that is correct. In Estonia, we'll use carbon dioxide as an input to produce a calcium carbonate. So this little white powder here, today you need to mine it from the bedrock. You mine, in this case, a limestone. You take it up, you incinerate it, and then you produce the calcium carbonate. We will instead take the ash mountains that are around Narva, 600 million tons of them, take out the calcium, add on carbon dioxide, and then produce this instead. And the total carbon emissions reduction is 400 million tons. And that's 8 times as much as Sweden as a nation emits. But then we have not taken into consideration the silica, the magnesium and the aluminium that we also will be able to extract. So we're opening up now for partnerships with companies that like to have those type of elements. And this morning we talked with Australia because they need silica in order to produce new solar cells. So this is happening now at the COP.
This is so fantastic to hear about it. It's because it's so interconnected, not just the countries, but also the different flows of materials, how we can connect them. And when you hear this, what's going on in terms of innovation in these processes, what are your reflections?
Well, first of all, when driving this type of innovation, it does open up opportunities in so many different sectors. I mean, the right way to see this necessary transition is in itself a driver for innovation. So basically, those who are not doing that are just missing out on a lot of potential and opportunities.
Thank you. And Theodore and Niklas, taking down so much carbon and putting things circularity more in focus in the processes. This is also what you do in your companies in many ways. So what are your reflections on this what Per just said? Niklas?
Yeah, it's impressive, Per, I must say. It's really, really interesting. And what strikes me, and it goes for our companies as well, obviously, but circularity is of course key going forward. The days are over when we were only concentrating on the first life and the second life of our products, but now actually we need to find circularity in everything we do, obviously. So and another thing that strikes me is then that negotiations ongoing here in the COP is I wonder if policymakers actually are following the great speed of everything when we're talking innovation, if they have a chance actually to follow this pace that is actually going on. Because we all know, we've been talking about collaboration in each and every conference, like, I don't know, 20 years back. Now it's actually happening, isn't it? We have so many different examples. My only worry is that policymakers actually negotiating about this, do they actually follow the pace? That's my worry.
And that leads me to the next question. Would you like to reflect first here?
Yeah, maybe just shortly to say that I think that the whole topic of circularity is extremely important also in the context of climate action. Mm-hmm. And I don't think maybe we here see it enough here or currently. And I do think that, or we think at ABB, this is going to be the next level of the discussion also when it comes to the whole climate topic. And we have set some very ambitious goals for ourselves. We're at the moment in the final rounds of developing our own circularity framework. And we have, when we have that ready, we will talk about it later in December at our Capital Markets Day, hopefully. And we already said at the end of last year that by 2030 we want the majority or almost close to all of our business to be covered by this framework, really driving the topic of circularity throughout the whole life cycle of every single product and service that we produce.
But because again, we have other planetary boundaries that are really under pressure to not just the climate related issues, of course. So in terms of policy, what would you say is needed, Niklas, to get this? Oh, you're smiling. Yes.
Yeah, Katarina, thank you. I was already touching it because I was standing here thinking about this actually, and you know, we could stand here with our wish list, if you like, with policy tools. But I think if I just make it very short and summarize, that is really what we all need in all sectors is the right price on carbon to actually support the transition as such. And there, you know, partnerships and collaboration in all honor, but you know, there we need to get it right, because the price of carbon is different from one sector to another, and carbon leakage and all of these things that we can see. And for instance, in the transport industry, I think we are approximately we need a price on carbon that is probably like 10 times higher than for other sectors to make secure that our innovation, because our type of innovation and technology is a bit more expensive than in other industries. So we need to get it right. So if I make it short, the right price on carbon, and again, coming back then to end with just to help each other to secure that the people actually negotiating on the NDCs here really follow this transition pace, because it's going really quickly now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and following on that, of course, the setting carbon price is extremely important, but also having the right policies. And it's a pretty complicated topic. The world is big, and the differences between different parts of the world and the needs are also vast. But of course, then to drive this, you know, the price or the revenue that hopefully is collected also through certain environmental taxes, etc., to drive the investment into the green transition, into renewable energies. But we should also not forget that while we talk about decarbonizing energy in a majority big part of the world, there is still a very large part of the world which today doesn't have access to energy, which means they don't have access to having a proper industry, education, and healthcare, etc. So I think we shouldn't forget also in these discussions here the whole discussion in and around that part of the world, and that we all need to come together, those of us who can afford it, and make sure that we also put them on the right transition.
Thank you very much. And Isaksson, in terms of policies, I won't
repeat what's already been said, so I'll just add two things. I think that having the right frameworks and the right KPIs to really drive the transparency of climate impact, for instance, and connecting that to the financial metrics. So that's one part, and I mean, it's ongoing work, but we need to improve that. Another part actually has to do with how we actually work with policy. So carbon pricing, that's one policy, but then policy, as you said, is this big word, and all of these innovations tend to hit policy walls in different ways, you know, even down on the ground, like a very local bureaucratic policy. So there's always also a case to be made for improving learning from, you know, agile and innovation practices, and how to also work with policy. So we have seen around the world sandboxes. Sweden has a proud history of policy experimentation, even though, and so we've had it. So that's what I would like to add. Just remember that policy is also not given by God or nature, but something that we create, and we could experiment with policy, and I think that would be very fruitful. So orchestrated policy experiments throughout Europe could really help drive the policy that we need forward.
Thank you, Gustafsson. And just one more question for you, please. Here at the COP, we meet to discuss and to collaborate more on this pressing issue. But from your perspective, leading the Swedish Innovation Agency, how much networking and work can you do from your perspective here on innovation connected to we're talking to here about today? Is there time and room for this? Or what other arenas do you have for international collaboration when it comes to innovation?
I don't want to answer with a calendar management answer. Let's just say, of course, what's unique about COP is the very clear focus, impact. How do we actually drive this necessary transformation? And COP is about the international negotiations on the framework and how to keep the goals alive, etc. But I think all the discussions here are very relevant to the how question. And I can only say that I believe that we have this discussion in other forums too, but this is of course a fantastic place for that as well.
Thank you very much. Pelosos, I had one more question for you, going back to your core business here that I didn't get to ask. We still have a few minutes to go. In terms of waste and wastewater, more specifically, all over the world we have wastewater treatment plants. And you are stating at Ragn-Sells that these wastewater plants will be tomorrow's resource treatment plants. And that's really circular in the most profound matter. Could you please tell us what this is about?
Yeah, and this is related to policies, of course, because today the wastewater treatment plants in Europe, or mainly in the world, they're not allowed to produce resources. Their obligation is to clean up from the liner system's problems. So therefore, together with Swedish Water, we have come up with policy recommendations how we can convert them and have another role. Suddenly, if then the phosphorus have a value, the cost for the society will go down if then the resource treatment plants are allowed to produce them. Another example is our innovation where we will be able to recycle nitrogen directly from the wastewater. Today, the liner process is that you incinerate natural gas, take it down from the atmosphere, you use it, and then it ends up in our wastewater. Then it becomes another problem, how to get it out. The only way, or the dominating way today, is through biological treatment, where you take it up to the atmosphere with high laughing gas emissions as an effect. We have developed a method where we can extract the nitrogen directly and directly produce a fertilizer. But again, the wastewater treatment plant are not allowed to do it. And to be honest, policies today prevent us, because if it has been waste, it is bad. So here, policymakers, if you want to like to do a climate change and reduce the cost for society, enable circular material flows, especially for nutrients. So this is possible. So therefore, in all the NDCs going forward in the years to come, I would like to have circular ambitions. And if we can do that, we will really speed up the transformation to a low carbon society where also we care for the biodiversity and all other planetary boundaries.
Thank you, Pelosos. And just a few weeks ago, there was a broadcast focusing on this by We Don't Have Time that I'm a program host for. And we actually had more than 10 million viewers. So there is a huge interest for circularity and the race to zero, because it is definitely all interconnected. Just a final, quick answer to question to all of you. Niklas, for these days, or I don't know how many days you're going to spend here at the COP, what meetings and what interactions are you looking forward to the most?
It's a lot of them, but I think if I should be really honest, as a human being and as a person, it's the outcome of the negotiations, of course, which I'm not part of, obviously, but that's what I'm actually really interested in. Then rest of it is learning and teaming up with others, really, be it other industries, as we've been talking about here today, or be it with policymakers in different parts of the world, because everyone is sort of here. So that is a useful and effective time. It's a lot about efficiency, right? So yeah, that's what it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Theodor, would you like to?
Yeah, maybe I come back quickly to where I started. We are a society of human beings. I think, I hope that we at the end of this whole thing, or that the negotiators at the end of this thing come to a conclusions which are good for the future of humanity. I think there are a lot of different dimensions to that. Of course, I really enjoy this, meeting customers or partners, learning new things, government, civil society, learning about fossil-free steel. I got very inspired earlier here today by some discussions. So I think it's really a multitude of interactions with many different stakeholders that are all present, which is, again, going back to where I started, I think it's lovely that it's possible, again, after a couple of years of difficult physical human interaction, and I think we all need that. So hopefully that physical interaction will also help inspire our leaders who are negotiating somewhere next to here for a good conclusion.
Thank you. I actually asked Mattias Frumerie before he stepped up on stage, what did it feel like when you started yesterday? And he said, was the energy good? And he might not still be here in the room, but I think I can quote him. He said, yes, it felt like there was, people were leaning forward and wanting to really contribute. Of course, this is what we want to see. So Tarja Isaksson, what are you looking forward to the most in terms of interactions and also outcome of this? Well, the outcome, maybe that's easier, but the interactions...
I think the most important outcome, of course, so what we hear here is a strong awareness, a strong sense of urgency, and obviously the outcomes of the negotiations need to reflect that. So that's the most important thing. That's why COP exists. That's what we need it for. In terms of interactions, I know that a lot of things have already happened. So I can only say I continue to follow up on all of these discussions. And later this week there's also a Science and Innovation Day, where there will be even more partnership discussions along these themes. So I think it's early to say, but I'm hoping for even stronger collaborations, even more of these ambitious projects, and also across, obviously, country lines. And I'm really looking forward to see them happen.
Thank you very much, Tarja Isaksson. And Per Larssons.
We will be here until the last day. We will showcase different kind of material flows, whether it can be circular, and we will try to network, try to create great contacts with others that has the same ambitions that we have. So being here, listening, use our 2 ears, but also present and inspire, and hopefully we will then raise the awareness that it's possible to do change now.
Thank you. The importance of this arena, we are standing here among the birch trees. The Swedish factor in all of this, Per Larssons, what is our responsibility to push this further?
Our responsibility is to really to act, and we can't wait, and that is the main message. And I believe that Sweden has so many innovations. We need to dare to be more bold and to show that we can do even more and partner with other countries as well. So we will try now to talk with each and every pavilion that we might believe could be interested and raise awareness about the future.
Thank you. And Niklas?
Yeah, I think it's actually pioneering the possible. I mean, that's the Sweden role, I think, in many different areas in the world, actually. So really try to find the new partnerships that we need also globally, utilizing Sweden as a credible and trustworthy and also forward-leaning country in many areas. For Volvo, yes, it's a small market for us, less than 2%, but we do most of our innovation, more than 60% of our R&D in Sweden, in that small country. So it's very important from different aspects.
Thank you very much. Theodor, would you like to add?
Yeah, it's of course a lot of things to say, but as a Swede, I'm working in a very global company on a global basis, dealing with people from all over the world every day. I think there are many different core competencies of typical Swedish heritage, and they all overlap pretty much with the ABB values, which is all about curiosity, care, collaboration, and courage. So I think I would summarize it like that, and again underlining the pioneering the possible, and just to say thank you also to the team from Business Sweden who have arranged this excellently here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'll give the final words to Tarja Isaksson. On this stage here, pioneering the possible, innovation and the Swedish role.
Well, I mean, I think it's clear that Sweden has the ambition to pioneer the possible and actually lead, so that requires to take this opportunity to act and do so in a mindset. And then I would like to quote Martin Lundstedt, who was on this stage previously today, and he said, "Partnership is the new leadership."
Beautiful words. Well, thank you very much, all 4 of you, for talking to me here and to the audience here at COP26, and also following us from somewhere else in the world today. And best of luck again, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.